Hello, and welcome to the Humans Over Numbers podcast, the show that's willing to stand on its head to see the workplace from a new perspective. This show is brought to you by Milestones, makers of the Beyond This Day, Small Wonders, and other keepsake gifts for employees. Recognizing major life events, request your sample today at milestonescompany.com and see the impact they make for yourself. I'm Felix Dusablon, hungry bookworm and aspiring polymath, and today I have on the show Kyle Crooke. Now, Kyle is author of a book called Engagement, The Path to a Better You. Hey everybody, so I'm here with Kyle Crooke, author of Engagement, The Path to a Better You. So he's an engagement specialist, kind of like myself, but I would say a lot better and a lot further in.
Oh man, yeah, I've been, well, thank you for that introduction, Felix. I think you were very humble and very, very generous. Yeah, I took about a year and a half to write this book, and it's just kind of a culmination of what I've experienced from work, what I've studied at school, and then an iteration of what I'm doing at work now. So I'm by no means an expert, but I'm definitely passionate about this and love sharing insights and just talking to people about their work, why they do what they want to do, and how engaged they are, not just in work, but in other parts of their lives as well.
Well, what you just said, you're passionate about it, but not necessarily an expert. I think that's probably better because someone who's an expert might not actually really care about it so much, whereas someone who's passionate about it, they're going to go that extra mile to learn and know that thing. So I think you're probably in a better spot. I'll start with
I like
first
that.
question here. So engagement's a really soft concept. Do you have any really solid definitions that we can use to sort of bedrock our conversation?
Great question. So I think, I don't know who said it first, but I really like when he said, if you can't articulate something simply, then you don't know what you're talking about. So to me, I forget at this point what page that I defined it in the book. But to me, engagement at a fundamental, somewhat tangible level is just displaying an interest in something. And so that's on a spectrum, right? If you don't display any interest, whether it's in the sport that you're playing or in your diet, in your fitness, or in your work, you're going to have zero engagement. If you display some interest, then you're half there, half not. If you display full interest, then you're there. So even though that's still very soft, what I'm starting at the core is it's simply displaying interest in something. And how you display interest in something is a result of three things: of your intention, of your actions, and the impact of your actions. And so the intention is broken down primarily mentally into what you think and how that converts into your actions, which is your daily behavior, which ultimately become your daily behaviors. And sometimes there's a disconnect between your intention and action. We can have the best intention, but if the action doesn't correlate with that, that can end in a fight with your spouse when it should have been something that you're trying to compliment and trying to encourage them on, or it can result in an argument with your boss that was not supposed to go that way. So it's really important to connect both of those, and by displaying an interest in not just the external in your work, in your play, but in yourself, in the way that you think, it's going to help connect your intention with your action. And then displaying an interest in the action steps that you do day in and day on is going to result in that long-term impact that you're looking for. So it's essentially a big ball of momentum, right? What I use in the book is it's essentially a snowball coming down the hill. Is that once you start thinking more intentionally and taking more action based on your why, based on what you want to be engaged in, that it continues to build momentum for the action and then for the results. And so obviously with a snowball down the hill, it can result in, disastrously hurting 5, 10, 15 people, or it can just be something beautiful and organic that continues to go and show God's awesome earth. So it's really at its core, engagement is to display an interest in something. And that's reflected not really in what we say or what we think, but in what we do. But what we say and what we think impacts what we do. So that's the connection there. It's essentially what you can measure that you do on a daily basis not just externally in the actions that you take in work and your play, but also how you handle yourself, especially when nobody is looking. That's my way of getting that very soft concept of engagement to apply not only to ourselves at work, but to just who we are as people.
Wow. I think that's interesting that you added that third part, because I probably would have on my own, if I really sat about it and thought for a while. I'd been like, oh, okay, it's probably what you want, like, to do, and then some of your action. I would definitely not have thought of it making impact part of that. But it just naturally does fit in there. And I also love that you said, like, you have to align those, because if they're not aligned, there's a quote I think it's Chinese proverb. It's the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about this idea of engagement. So, what level of engagement is the most dangerous? 0, normal, or extreme? Because you talk about this in your book, and it was something I was like, I don't think I've ever thought about that. And also the image you used, I was extremely amused by, because you used this image of a guy called Bobby, Joseph, and Fred. I used to live with 3 people called Bobby, Joseph, and the other one was not called Fred. But I was like, this is weird.
No, that is, Felix, that is actually a really great question. So breaking it down, just looking at someone who is not engaged at all, I would say it's, whether it's in their work or in their relationships, it's very dangerous, because they can kind of translate their apathy onto others and disengage folks who are already engaged. So to me, that's pretty dangerous. On the other end of the extreme engagement is, and I know we can all have our kind of anecdotal experience about this, is it's great to be really passionate, really lit up about something. But if it's kind of when your, mom or dad, quote unquote, keeps nagging you over and over again, it's kind of talking to a brick wall, and then you just, lose interest and stop. So if you try and do too much, it's like drinking water, right? If you don't drink enough, that's bad. If you drink too much, it can kill you as well. And it's people where if you can get people excited and then with you, and then if you try to do too much and push their buttons too much in the workplace, like you try and say, okay, for this next quarter, we need all of our employees to join two civic engagement opportunities on their own time. They need to volunteer X amount of time, and they need to join 2 of our special interest groups. That's great, and the energy's there, but that is absolute overwhelm and overload, and it will be just as effective as no engagement, as in it's not going to have any effect at all. But for me personally, the normal level of engagement can be the most dangerous. And the reason why I think that is because it's kind of someone just being the status quo, someone who is waking up, they're, engaged reasonably in their work, reasonably in their relationships, what they're doing with their personal interests, but they kind of just go through life on the average and on the status quo, and not truly synergizing how they approach their work, their play, and their relationships. So those are the people who are kind of at a loss, because they think that they're engaged with their life, but they're really missing out on so much more. Whereas those who are not engaged, they typically have, quote unquote, accepted their life as is, and at least, can own the consequences of that decision. And that's the same thing with people who over engage, is that they typically understand their personality type it may turn some people off, and then other people who are somewhat engaged are also very engaged. It'll help them. So they're normally in a better spot than someone who's not engaged. But someone's just the normal level of engagement is that they kind of go through life just walking around, not really understanding that they could be running, skipping, learn how to handstand walk and do all that cool stuff. So it really is dangerous being part of the status quo, because they don't know what they're missing out on. At least the other 2 ends of the spectrum have kind of made that decision of who they are and have accepted it. And those in the middle are just kind of stranded in a purgatory that they don't even know that they're in.
That's a funny thing, though, also with the middle, because the status quo being the majority of people. So it's like not even that it's a dangerous place, but almost everyone falls into it. So it becomes like a double whammy there.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, so we're in the middle. what's our first step to getting engaged?
Great question. So the first step is any step. Going back to the snowball idea, for anyone at any level of engagement or just looking at what you're doing in life, let's use an example of diet and exercise, for instance. So it's not that important if you've had a sedentary life to, say, okay, I'm going to go to the gym three or four times a week for the next 3 months, and I'm going to have this goal of losing 10, 20 pounds, this or that, because that's something that is going to scare them from going from nothing to a heck of a lot. So it's really just going day by day and taking the first action, just being like, okay, I'm going to go on a 10-minute walk outside. And then the next day is, okay, I'm going to go on a 7-minute jog, and to build on that accordingly. A lot of people get in their own heads by saying, okay, I have to do this major transformation and I need to see it now. That's why they get in their own heads. So a big part of my book as well is for folks to accept where they are, the level of engagement they are in their work, in their diet, fitness, and their relationships. And instead of trying to jump from A to T to Z, go from A to B just by focusing on one thing that you can do that next day that'll ultimately bring you closer to your goal. And so once you take that first step and you realize it's not that bad because it's a quote unquote small step, and you can start seeing day to day the impact that it has on, walking and jogging have on your ability to breathe and to be more calm. You'll be catalyzed by that to replicate it in other parts of your life, which is where you start realizing how all parts of your life are connected. So that first step is unique for everyone, but it's a step that they have to stop waiting for it. It's not going to be perfect. The journey itself of engagement is not perfection. It is progress. So it's just taking that first step and committing to it day by day and having that myopic view for the first, couple of engagement activities that you do. And then once you take action on it and you realize the impact that they have, then you can go back to your intention and kind of get clarity from there. Clarity is not the starting point. It's the ending point after taking action and experiencing. And then you can kind of take a macro look and see how changes in your fitness and your body type have impacted the way that you approach your friends or your work, or by the way, or how you spend a little bit more time at work, maybe working on business email communication, on crisping that up, and see how that impacts whether it's your client or your teammates and your ability to connect with them and their output based on the information that you can provide them more succinctly. So it's just the day by day, take a step, any step, it just has to be taken.
I think that's really cool. There's something, I think you're probably familiar with this term, SMART goals. Those are a type of way people get them, and I love that your point was just like that first step's any step. The first step is the best one to take. It's any step you take. And that hits the middle part of that SMART goal. That's that measurable and attainable, but especially that attainable. Having something to do right away that is there will help you move on and get into your rhythm. And so I think, that's fantastic. Because a lot of people are like, I'm going to do this huge thing, and it's not attainable. Or they're like, you put up that I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, and they're like, I'm going to do this huge, crazy fitness transformation that, people who've been working out or exercising for 10 years haven't achieved. But I'm going to do this. That's my goal. And you're like, that might not be your best starting spot, right? And so, that attainable, making that step, just making it happen. I think that's a really cool idea.
It's just like the first step in the pool, right? It's hardest for like, ooh, it's blah blah blah. But then once you actually take that first step and dive on in, then you're fine.
Yeah. Okay. You talk a lot about this idea of a mission in your book, like the idea of having the mission, and that's actually a thing. That's your hashtag you use on social media a lot, is master your mission. So how do we identify that mission?
Yeah, great question. So in the book, granted I am very, very biased, but I do provide a very interesting methodology for mission setting mapping. So I ask a certain number of questions related to mindset to actions, and then to the impact that it has on others. So if you do, if someone, reading does get the book or wants to reach out to me for the mission city map, I'm happy to send it. So that's the kind of official methodology there. But in kind of a high level view, is that quite frankly, it's very similar to the, to the question that people ask themselves and others: what's your purpose in life? And for, many of us, for, faith-based, we know our purpose, as disciples of Christ. But from a more human level, it's like, well, why exactly are we here? What's the purpose of, living this day to day? And so a lot of people try to think, try and really think day to day of why they're here and why they're doing something. And ultimately 56 years down the line, they don't really have the answer to it, but they have a life of living impact and experience to be able to reflect and appreciate. So the mission is it's not something that is stagnant. Some 9 or 10-year-olds can be very clear in their mission, whereas a 50 or 60-year-old just has no idea. It's not really based on, maturity level or, from age specifically. So ultimately your mission is really the starting point in your mind of where you want to channel your engagement. So channel your interests, which is a culmination of your skills, of how you spend your time, and most importantly, the people that you spend it with. And so throughout your life, you're getting all of these tips and tricks that you learn from other people, from failing, succeeding, whether it's in high school, college, work world. And it's constantly changing, right? Is that, Mike Tyson, you said, everyone has a plan A until they're punched in the face, then it turns to plan B. So it's constantly adapting, not only how you view yourself and others, but also adapting your mission as well. Because if you get too caught up in saying, okay, I'm here on this earth to do this one thing, this is my singular mission, you could be missing out on a lot of other skills that you have, on a lot of other opportunities that come up in your life that you kind of close yourself off to. So that's why in my book, I do an analogy of a swimming pool to describe people's missions and other things where, some folks, their mission in that pool is like Michael Phelps, is to become an Olympic level athlete. Other people's, is to relax in that pool on vacation from a very stressful 2 years of work. Some other, people, moms and dads, are teaching their kids how to swim in that pool, right? So you can have one singular thing that has different applications to different people, which is kind of the same with your mission. If you come up with, something that, for me, for instance, my mission at its core is simply to have a positive impact on other people. And that's very broad and very general. And so what I'm learning day to day and dynamically adapting is how I best impact people, whether it's through LinkedIn, through work, and just growing on that. So essentially that's my pool, is, impacting people positively. And I'm finding out ways of, putting a diving board in there. I'm finding ways of, sometimes I have to be the lifeguard. Other times I have to be the swim coach. It's just really being open to opportunities, but also just having an understanding from your heart of where you want to spend most of your time and create your impact accordingly.
Okay. So yeah, really just forming that idea, using your identity, who you are, of what you want to achieve, sort of. That's your mission. Okay.
Yeah, and it's tough. It requires self-awareness, and it changes throughout life. But yeah, having confidence in, your own value system, your own character, and then depending on your own actions and circumstance, synergizing it just like you do your level of an engagement to really propel your own mission forward.
Okay. So here's a sort of question I have about that, then making it sort of last. How do you avoid what I'm gonna call the new hire syndrome? If you've seen those memes, it's like day one and the person's like in the tie suit and they're all really prepped and ready to go and they're super engaged, but then it shows the next meme over and it says day 99, you're like a skeleton sitting there, or just, completely not engaged, not in any way. And this can be these memes, these jokes sort of exist throughout different like genres. I'm gonna call them like work or starting new hobbies or day one of quarantine. You're like, yeah, when quarantine started, and then day 90 of quarantine, I was like, quarantine. I'm so done with this. And they were so ready to get going. How do you keep motivating and keep going so that you still look maybe not like day one, but more like day one when you hit day 90?
That is an absolutely great question. Yeah, that's same thing with people with their New Year's resolutions and everything like that. And then I've talked to so many just really talented folks who are in mid to upper level management and then executive positions, and clearly they're very smart, gifted, but they do have, some of them are kind of jaded in that they're over time kind of lose some of that passion and just some of that fire. And my recommendation is to throw motivation out the window. Actually, is that motivation is, I do not like motivation, and it's very interesting because I used to coin myself as Mr. Motivation, but like in my book, I've kind of adapted over time. And the reason is because motivation is something that comes and goes. It's not a system. It's kind of the same thing as quote unquote inspiration. It comes and goes. It's not a system that's going to allow you to continually propel and make progress. And so one time you're inspired and motivated, and then after a month or so, there's nothing there. And then that just trickles into the next month, into 99 days. So my recommendation is to focus on discipline. So obviously not many people like discipline, but having discipline in your goals for work, for fitness, for your relationships, is something where every single day you're creating action. Even if you're going through the motions, you're creating action that builds upon itself. So if you focus on discipline, you're naturally increasing motivation and inspiration by building on what you're already creating, and you don't even really recognize it anymore because the discipline has become your habit. So motivation, inspiration, those can't become habits because they're temporary feelings that come and go. If you have a habit of discipline, you're forming that, intrinsic inspiration, motivation that keeps propelling you forward. And so from an organizational context, to really empower employees to have their day one look similar to day 99 is to foster and encourage input from employees on how they view engagement. A lot of companies just give a yearly engagement survey. You're doing it wrong if that's how you're doing it. You've got so many employees who, whether they love watching sports, they love playing sports, book clubs, stuff like that, is that people in your organization have natural interests outside of work. And so if you encourage them to come up with ideas for, whether it's special interest groups, and I'm not just talking about the obligatory employee resource groups, like for people of minority status. Those are absolutely phenomenal, but those aren't true engagement levers because they're not open to everyone in the organization. They are to an extent for people joining, but it's not the same as people who can generally bond over a shared passion and a shared interest in sports and books, something like that. And so when people in the organization know that they have that psychological safety to be able to express interest in that stuff, they can reach out to their fellow employees, which to me is more important than being engaged just in your work, but also engage with your fellow employees, not only for, your work products, but then also being able to get to know them as people, and then creating these types of groups and creating these ideas that can not only, benefit the people in that group, but also the company, because as people relate more, both professionally and personally, they're able to come up with a lot better ideas that can help out the organization overall. So instead of organizations being really strict on what engagement looks like to them and what they want, they should really allow their employees and trust them with, kind of crafting engagement as to what they want, set up the discussions and set up some network groups in the organization to find that out and incentivize and encourage folks to go wild with their levels of engagement and let them have the power.
I love that. Okay, so there's a part in the very, very beginning of your book. I think it was in your introduction, and you said, which I think this gets what you were just saying gets to that. It says, "You must engage yourself in your work and your play, and you capitalize the word "and" because you said those two need to happen together, and I think you were just pointing to that. And I see on your LinkedIn and stuff you do a lot of weightlifting, which I'm guessing just a lot based off the number of Olympic lifts and such you do. You're doing you CrossFit, um, and you did drop that name there in the book at one point. How do you think that affects your business life, your ability to work and engage outside? I mean, like using that outside of work to help your inside work.
Oh no, that's a great question. That for sure. When I mentioned about discipline, that has helped my discipline so much over the last couple of years, especially with ups and downs in, well, obviously what's been going on in the world the last few months, and then just for me personally over the last year or two, there were so many days where I was going through the motions, where I didn't have motivation or inspiration, but somehow, some way, I don't know why, when I was able to commit to doing some sort of exercise or some sort of fitness related activity for 5 to 6 days a week, even though my mindset was really off and everything with work and other stuff was off. I still don't know why I exercise that discipline into fitness, but I've realized that after years and years of creating that, my fitness now is at a point where I wouldn't say my physically I'm extremely fit, but I would say that my mind, just mentally day in and day out, has gotten a lot more mentally strong and mentally fit, which has allowed me to counteract the few months here and there where I'm not feeling that great overall, or there's a lot of confusion or ambiguity at work and in my personal life. So it really empowers me and reminds me every day, or most days when I'm doing something fitness related, is that it's not just to de-stress, it's not just to exercise our bodies, but it's a daily reminder of the impact that discipline has over time, because I've seen how it has helped me tremendously just get out of all the funks and everything over the last couple of years. And quite frankly, some of the really cool things that I've been able to accomplish within fitness, I never realized that I could do, and it gives me confidence and empowers me to be like, I just did this. We do this workout called Murph every year. It's a mile run, lots of pull-ups, push-ups, squats, a mile run. I'm like, if I can wear a vest during that in the hot freaking sun, I can handle this project deliverable for 2 days at work in no time. So it's really helped with discipline, putting things in perspective. And it's also something where I do want to emphasize to folks is that don't judge yourself on the things that you're doing in your work or in your playtime that help translate over and help with your mindset. Not everything has to be serious. It doesn't have to be, even though in CrossFit, so many things are for time or, how much weight that you actually lift. What's most important is that's just taking that step day in and day out. And it really took me 2 to 3 years of, the fitness and then work and those experiences to really gain that clarity. So I know it's super hard for people to hear, but whatever you want to stick to and stay disciplined to, it ain't sexy, but it works. Stay with that and see how over time it builds resilience, not only in, for me, for fitness, but how it's applied to work, how I'm able to adapt better to different relationships, whether it's with my awesome girlfriend or with my friends. It's just mentally what it's done for me, because it all starts with your mind, flows through your heart, and then impacts through your hands, right? So it's what it's done for me mentally is just so big. And mentally, when you're mentally engaged in everything, your work, your life, it's going to have an impact everywhere. And for someone who's not mentally engaged, well, unfortunately, they're just not truly present or truly really, living at that point, as sad as it is to say. So I'm focusing discipline, everything that I do is trying to focus on sharpening this to keep, the heart better. And then ultimately just striving for more and trying to coincide with my mission of providing as much value to people as possible.
I think that at this point, because we're running lower on time, I'm needing to wrap it up. And I was gonna say let's try deciding those key points, but I think you brought it all back in with the past time, how you use that discipline to help you bring it over and how you take those steps and you move your way through with that mission that you've decided, that you've built for yourself to really help others and whatever it is that you want to do, which for you is help others and help inspire them and guide them and such. And you just, you put it all together. So I think that's like a really nice way to bring that conversation to a close. I know there's so much to say about it. I'm sitting here going, man, I would love to just chat with you for like hour, 2 hours.
Well, let's have episode number 2, 3, and 4 coming up.
I definitely think I would love to do that. I will push really hard to see if we can get you back on the show at some point. But we like to end these fun questions. They're just sort of quick, rapid fire, real fun questions.
Yes.
10 of them. So I think
all right, rapid fire.
Start and see how this goes. Okay. What book do you think everybody should read?
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh, that's a good one.
Fantastic book. Fantastic.
I had actually a quote from there to bring in. I've never read the book, and I really want to, but that's a good choice. Maybe I'll have to read it now.
Great book.
Okay. What was the last thing you splurged on?
Oh, last night went to a steakhouse thanks to a gift card from a family member, and I got a nice little medium filet mignon, and it was delicious. Definitely splurged on that. That was fun.
What is your most useless talent or superpower?
I would say walking on my hands. So handstand walking, I train myself to where I can go over obstacles and, go up and down ramps and stairs, and then I can, walk in them for ages. It's very useless, but it's something that I love to do.
Maybe one day it'll become useful. I don't know.
But maybe one day if I lose my legs.
Your hands, escape a burning building, even though you don't have your feet anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Lose my legs, lose my feet, have my hands.
That's awesome. What is the most interesting thing you have seen or read this week?
Let's see. No, I'm just kidding. That was self-promotion there. The most interesting thing that I saw within the last week or so is I would say in the news, what's very interesting is what's going on with TikTok and with Microsoft potentially acquiring them and seeing how it's impacting the stock market, and then also how it has political ramifications. So I think it's very interesting to see, because for me, I personally don't like TikTok that much. I don't like the content on there. I don't think it's really high quality content. But from a Microsoft perspective, it makes a lot of sense, and it's really cool to see older. Granted, Microsoft isn't that old of a business, but more traditional businesses and B2B, having them reach out to have more consumer data and be more B2C is really cool to see.
Interesting. Okay. What would a world populated only by clones of you be like?
Oh boy, that would be misery. No, it would be a very good looking world. No, just kidding. Oh my gosh, I could not even fathom. I think it would be a lot. It would just be a lot of craziness. It would be a lot of thinking, a lot of talking, and then a lot of reacting to one another, and then being very empathetic to each other, lifting each other up, and then each person would try and outdo the other to help encourage them, and then it essentially just this stairway to heaven based on all those different Kyle's efforts. I would like to imagine, at least.
Kyle world. Okay. What as a child did you think would be awesome, but as an adult turns out not to be?
What is what?
What did you think as a kid would be awesome, but when you grew up, it was like, nope.
So I used to think staying up late for watching TV and eating ice cream would be awesome. And granted, it is awesome, but it's not nearly as great as I thought it would be as a kid. I would literally go out of bed on the top of the stairs, lie down so my parents can see me, and just watch them for not hours on end, for 30, 45 minutes, watch a cool movie and eat ice cream. I thought that would be so cool. And yes, it is cool, but it's not nearly as cool as I thought when I was 7 or 8.
Junk food just doesn't taste quite as good as it did as a kid. Chicken nuggets are amazing, but then you get on and you're like, these are good, but they're not like manna. They're not ambrosia.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
What is a word that is a lot of fun to say?
I've always, I'm trying to think real quick. There's always one word that dang it. Well, now at the appropriate time, I've forgotten that word. But one word that I do like is indelible.
Indelible.
Yes.
Kind of fun, yeah.
So like,
I like that.
Yes.
Syllables.
Yeah. For me, it's tough to actually say it, indelible. And then I just love when people say it's indelibly imprinted in my mind or something. I just always reading it or when people say it. I don't know why, but I think it's a fun word. And it also has deli in it. So food. There you go.
Okay. What is something everybody in the world can agree on?
I don't think there is anything that everyone in the world can agree on, unfortunately. Great question. That I would like to hope is that everyone can agree on helping out one another and seeing the world continue to progress. Unfortunately, there's some people out there who don't feel that way. So I would hope so, but I just really don't think there's one thing that everyone can agree on, unfortunately.
Okay. If you could de-invent one thing, what would it be?
TikTok. So I know what I mentioned earlier, but my girlfriend scrolls through that and just the songs and looking at it. I was like one in every 20 videos might be relevant or something. I just don't get it. I'm much more Instagram, much more LinkedIn heavy. I find a lot of the value and content there. TikTok, everyone. I'm like, no, just stop.
It's funny.
Definitely de-invent that.
A lot of people, when I've like asked this question just sort of like for fun to some people, and boom, first response usually is TikTok. I'm like,
yeah.
Funny, like, so many people really hate it.
Yeah, it's just my girlfriend or friends with the same music on all the time. I'm like, oh my gosh. So, yep, TikTok.
Okay. Last question. What life skills are rarely taught but are very useful?
Oh, wow. Kind of go, soft skills here again, but resilience and discipline. Mm-hmm. So many people, and granted, you can't really be taught either. It's something that, you experience something that catalyzes you to be more resilient and more disciplined. And it's something that you practice over time. And then from something more tangible is really just basic financial literacy and living a lifestyle that will optimize not only what you're doing with your current work, but with your goals for a family or financial goals for, 20, 30, 40 years down the line. My sister has just gotten into financial services and is working on IUL policies, which is like index universal life policy type stuff. I had no idea they existed. Apparently not many people know that they exist, and they are extremely beneficial. And this crisis, especially, what was it, 80+% of Americans didn't, living paycheck to paycheck or wouldn't be able to cover a $500 emergency expense. I mean, that's something, not just the financial literacy, but then, like I said before, the financial discipline component of it. So I think it's the education and it's the application of that.
Wow, that's a really useful skill. I think we definitely need to have that on top. All right, well, that really concludes it. So say thank you so much for being on the show. Goodbye. You guys, you should definitely check out Kyle Crooke and follow him and connect with him on Facebook. And yes, buy his book, Engagement with a Better You, on Amazon.com. Do you have any other places you sell it?
Not right now. No, it's purely on Amazon. Wow. The virtual monster.
Yeah, but I don't know why I even asked. Everyone has access to it. So. All right. Well, great to have you on the show. Thank you. Hope you guys, everyone, learned some really great stuff. I did. So until next time.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Felix.
You're very welcome. Thank you for listening to the Humans Over Numbers podcast, brought to you by Milestones. If you found it informative or entertaining, please like, subscribe, or leave a comment or review. I'm your host, Felix. Until next time.